Hey, George Haas here. So I just wanted to continue this conversation around how to enter into the path of meditation, maybe how you organize your practice. In the beginning, we were talking about the development of an ethical stance in the world. How do you become a good person? How do you make a decision to be a good person? Maybe even why you would make a decision to be a good person. And what that means to me anyway is that you're willing to renounce your need for revenge. In some sense, holding on to the need for revenge is a way of not admitting that, or in some way acknowledging that the thing that is lost is already lost. If you're holding on to something, it fills up space. If you're holding on to things that are already lost, you're filling the space for the things that might be now. Part of this is an understanding of the nature of the present moment. From the ethical stance, or this decision to be a good person, then we need also to begin to purify the mind. Pay attention to the hindrances that collect in the mind, craving for sense pleasure, craving for things to be different than they are, aversion to the way that things are, an active not wanting of the way that things are, inability to stay present in the moment. When you begin to examine these things, what I think you'll find is that happiness exists only in the present moment, and that the more time you spend out of the present moment, the less happy you are. If we understand that happiness exists only in the present moment, what is it about the present moment that makes it so difficult to inhabit it? So in that sense, avoid your own happiness. We talked a little bit about the absolute versus conceptual nature of reality. So the absolute nature of reality in the Buddhist sense is in the actual sensing experience itself. What information do you take in through your capacity to sense something? If you look at the Buddhist philosophical view of sensing, then you have the feeling aspect in the body, or the touch aspect of the body, seeing, hearing, tasting, smelling, same as the Western idea. But in addition to that, you have the thinking component. So one way to look at that is you have the capacity to sense, and then you have the thing that you make that sensing experience into. It turns out that the human capacity to sense things is very limited, very narrow. This is, say, the spectrum of light. This is the spectrum of light that we can detect. This is the spectrum of sound. This is the range of sound that we can hear. This is the spectrum of temperature. This is the spectrum of temperature that we can survive in. Looking at it from a neuroscience point of view, the whole body-mind experience is 11 million bits of discrete information processed every second, but consciousness, the conscious mind, the piece that we actually know about in that conscious way we view the world, is only 16 bits, this very narrow sliver of the whole picture. So in the absolute nature of things, we sense them, and they're processed, and the patterns are determined, and the associated meanings of each pattern is associated. The response to the present moment formulates, and then the whole body-mind begins to take action, and then we know about it, mostly from the point of view of, are you sure that this is a good idea? Do you want to follow through on it, or do you want to veto it, stop it? Have you ever stopped yourself completing a sentence 3 words in when you recognize that to complete it would be a total disaster? So if we know that it's useful to distinguish the absolute nature of reality from the conceptual nature of reality, then how do we do that? And that really is the topic of developing mindfulness. And this is actually a kind of a technical side of things. What is mindfulness and how do you develop it? Different from then how would you investigate or how would you explore using mindfulness in the pursuit of enlightenment. So I like to talk about it in the sense that we have the capacity to sense something, we have the object that can be sensed, and when they meet, we have a consciousness of the sensing experience which awareness knows. So without the object that can be sensed, without the capacity to sense it, there is no potential awareness of anything. So it's in some sense, an awareness of individual moments of consciousness that arise based on the interaction between an object that can be sensed and our capacity to sense it. If there's an object and we don't have the capacity to sense it, then we have no awareness of it, or it doesn't enter into awareness. No consciousness of it arises. And so we have the capacity to sense, which is just that. If no object contacts it, then no sensing experience arises. The capacity to sense, the object that can be sensed, when they meet, make contact, a sensing experience arises, a consciousness of that arises, and embedded in that is also the quality of the sensing experience. Is it pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral? Then there's the thing that we make that sensing experience into, the conditioned response to it, a conditioned phenomenon. If we don't recognize the sensing experience and it persists long enough, it will enter consciousness and we won't know what it is, or it'll enter conscious awareness and we won't know what it is. But most of the time, because the brain operates so quickly, that whole process unfolds unconsciously and it just enters conscious awareness as the thing that we know it to be. And so this process of mindfulness is really to begin to dig in to these different sensing phenomena and pull the pieces apart so that we can experience them independently. What is the sensing experience like in seeing, purely seeing? What is the sensing experience in purely hearing? What is the sensing experience of feeling in the body? And then in dividing them into these broad categories, we can bear down further. In the seeing experience, there's the external sight space, so eyes open, looking out. And then there's internal visual thinking, a mental screen where there's imagery associated with memory, planning, fantasy. There's an outline of the body in its current position. There's the location of the body in its current environment. There's an image reaction to sensation in the body. There is the image reaction to exterior sound. As you bear down into these different aspects of sensing, you may notice, for instance, that the outline of the body is accurate as long as there's constant feedback from the feel side of the body. But if you hold the posture still, that visual aspect without the feedback begins to drift, and so you notice these things. In hearing, you have exterior sound, which is related to the soundscape around you. Most of the time, everything you hear, you know what it is, and so the mind associates meaning to the sound. You may notice that there's an interaction between visual and auditory experience. If you hear something, there's a visual response to it. If you see something, often there's an auditory thought process that follows, the internal clear talk of the mind. If you bear down into that, maybe you notice a vibrating experience that exists inside auditory thinking space. Maybe you notice the cognition of what the clear talk will be precedes the actual clear talk, and that if you have enough concentration in that moment, you can know the thoughts of the mind without actually ever hearing the words, because you don't need to form them. When you touch into the body, you have the felt sense of the body, gravity, temperature, respiration, circulation, digestion, the efforting to hold the posture. And then you also have a range of emotional responses of the body. Emotion related to the present moment tends to play out on the surface, face, front of the throat, front of the torso, inside of the arms, inside of the legs here. You have emotion that's generated by thinking, so the process of visual and auditory thinking generating an emotional response in the body, which also plays out on the surface. Many people have the experience of somaticized emotion held in the body, so emotional centers deeper in the body, often presenting with a contractive energy and an intermittent release of a particular emotion. And then also we can develop a sensitivity to and track the empathetic experience of other people, so these aspects of experience of the body. So in developing mindfulness, what we really mean is that you're able to pull apart the threads of experience that come together in the tapestry of self and world, and to see them operating individually, and then seeing how they come together to form the whole, and in this way knowing actually what is the experience of being alive, the experience of being human. So in the coming talks we'll go more into this, and then look how taking the development of these mindfulness skills toward a particular goal, or what the possibility of using a Dharma map is a series of particular insights that tend to lead toward liberation. Thanks.